Beauties, today we're going to talk about this custom-made palette that I made. We're going to do swatches and 2 eye looks. If that sounds good, don't forget a thumbs up and let's get started swatching. Before I jump into swatching, let me quickly talk about the color story here and how I landed on this color story. In the lower part of this palette, we have some mauve shades that range dusty to not so dusty. Mauves and corals are variations of purple. I've mentioned this in my color theory series. Because it's a variation of purple and purple is a shade that has blue in it, it would go very well with other variations of purple and even a deep blue. If mixing them, they're not going to muddy up because they have the same nature. And then we have a brown that has some coral dots in it. This is a beautiful shade from Sydney Grace that really goes with the quad on this end of the palette. And I picked a Clionadh shade that has a pink, or rather corally, purpley, pinky shift as an accent shade. The teal accent completely juxtaposes the other shades in the palette and stands in contrast with those, but the shift of pink totally goes with the rest of the shades. Because I've mentioned this in my past videos that when choosing duochromes and multichromes to work with, one strategy is to combine them with shades that are variations of the shifts of the duochrome or multichrome. So in this case, this shade has a pink shift, and I've sort of coupled that with the mauves and the corals. Or we have purple shades up here that also have a blue shift, and I've contrasted that with the blue. Another way you can think about these shades is to think about them as complements. Coral and teal are almost complements. Teal is a variation of green, coral is a variation of red. If you use these shades next to each other, you could make them stand out. One last thing is that in this 9-pound palette, you can find a lot of quads that go really well together. I'll leave that exercise to you all to do. Let's get started swatching. Our first matte is Indiana Love, a beautiful, beautiful, deep, cool-toned blue, which frankly has a hint of green in it. This could be considered a tiny, tiny bit teal. Our next shade is from Shine by SD. This is called Denim Dream from the Halo Horizon collection. This shade looks like it's comprised of tiny, tiny glitter particles. I looked online to verify that these are not unsafe glitters, and unfortunately, because it's not available, I couldn't find enough information about it. I have mentioned time and time again that I don't use unsafe glitters. I don't think Shine by SD uses unsafe glitters, but I want to highlight that I don't know if this is unsafe. But because the shade is not available, I'm imagining if you own it, you have already purchased it, so you already know whether you want it, and you're not going to go buy it if you don't own it because it's not available at the moment. Denim Dream is a beautiful duochromy purple to blue shade, very gorgeous and shifty. If you don't own this shade or you don't want to use this shade, Multiverse from Terra Moons is another great option for this. You can see the very visible shifts as well as the glitteriness and brightness of this shade in the swatch. I do these swatches on bare skin. My recommendation is to use this over a tacky base if you have this shade. I've swatched and used Multiverse in other palettes that I've duped. I'll tag one of them below if you want to see what that shade looks like swatched, but it looks very similar to this one. With Denim Dream, I even see a gold shift. You all see that? Crystaline from Clionadh is our next shade. This is one of Clionadh's circular pans. I love these circular pans from Clionadh because they usually have beautiful, beautiful shifts. Crystaline has a beautiful purple base with a gorgeous hue of blue to silvery gold over it. I would really just call this a duochrome. I'm not going to call this a multichrome, and I think Clionadh agrees, otherwise it would not be in a circular pan. City Life from Sydney Grace, which is a beautiful gray with a hint of pink, is our next shade in this palette, our first shade in the second row. Although it's a gray, it has a beautiful purple hue, and I'm hoping the camera is capturing it. It's one of my favorite shades. For our middle shade, I picked Dried Heather from a Glam shop, which is a beautiful deep-toned dusty mauve. This is a very special shade. Charming Chaos from Sydney Grace is another shade that I picked for this palette. Hopefully the camera is capturing the tiny blue dots and the corally dots in this shade. This shade looks like it's not just one shade, but a little bit marbly. And those shades even look up in the swatches. We have sort of a gunmetal-y base with an overlay of very light coral, and in some locations even blue, and some of the shifts go into cream. This is a beautiful, beautiful and a super special shade from Sydney Grace. Our next shade is Emblem from Clionadh, which has a beautiful, beautiful light teal base with a gorgeous pink to gold shift over it. You can see the pink purple shift there. This shade is from their Electric Multichrome collection. You should already be able to see how bright and shiny Emblem is compared to these other shimmers in the palette. That's the uniqueness of Clionadh shades, and the shifts should be very obvious. So you have this sort of a gold there that mixes with the teal base to give us also a little bit of green. And then when I do this, we go into pink and magenta. This is such a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. Adore Me from Sydney Grace is such a beautiful pink mauve shade that goes fantastically with Dried Heather or Indiana Love. And I just realized, beauties, I don't have a lot of light tone shades in this palette. Did you all notice that? And last but not least is Lucky Peach from Sydney Grace, a beautiful duochrome with a coral base and a gold shift. This kind of shift is relatively common. You don't need to have this exact shade from Sydney Grace. I use Party Proof from ColourPop primer on this eye and Glam Lights icing on buttercream on this eye, already primed to preserve time, and we're going to use a whole lot of random brushes. I'm going to tell you what brush it is. Let's get started, and I'm going to tell you while I'm doing the look my no buy update. It's almost the end of the month. The date I'm filming is October 29th. Halloween is in a couple of days. I can't believe October flew by, partly because I was job searching. Maybe I was just so busy. I'm going to use 27 from Refer, going into this beautiful gray and putting it all over my crease. And beauties, I think you know the punchline, which is that I cheated on my no buy. I was on a month-long no buy, and the idea was I'm not going to buy anything, not just makeup. So I could do groceries pretty much only because I didn't have any other need. I used 14 back into that same shade. This is Refer 14. And I'm now doing my lower lash line with the same shade. So the idea was I'm not going to buy anything for the length of October, and I know you have seen a few things on my channel that I received from Clionadh Swatches. Those purchases were all done before this no buy, so no, it's not those that I cheated with. You see the beautiful purple hue that this shade has? I'm just loving it. I'm gonna now go into this one, and I'm gonna go across the lid with it. This is a gorgeous, super unique shade from Sydney Grace. I ended up buying something that is not a necessity, that I did not have a need for. Frankly, nobody really has a need for makeup items. And I know you all are waiting on me actually giving the punchline of what I bought. This is what I purchased. I'm now using, again, number 27 with whatever's left on it, and I'm just blending this edge. I knew or had thought that I wanted to do this no buy because there was going to be things releasing later in the year. I knew or thought that if there was going to be advent calendars, they would be dropping throughout the month of November. Although I don't know why I thought that, because a lot of brands already dropped advent calendars, so that's a little bit on me. But I also thought, well, if I waited until November, I could still pick them up until Cadillac dropped this. I'm using E07 from Singe, going back into this one. And I'm lining my lower lash line with it. I love that, Beauties. If you want to add some color to it, you can definitely use a little bit of this pink. Not instead of the gray in the crease, but just to buff out the edges of that gray. I'm now picking 15 and just blending. And what drew me and made me actually take the extra mile of breaking my no buy is something that is literally a marketing gimmick. A lot of people, a lot of brands do it to get you, and I'm a human, so you know, the same things that get everybody else also get me, and that is that they made this collection only available for like 4 or 5 days. You know, when you have something available for a long period of time, people are like, okay, I have time to decide. But when it's just a short window, you are under pressure to either make the purchase or not buy it. And when you have something that's more of a mystery, it's even more pressing and exciting for people, because people are always going to think that mystery box is going to have very exciting things. Let me go in with 03 from Refer. I'm going to go into this purple shade. Okay, I'm going in. I did my research, friends. So I went and looked at Cadillac's advent calendars from the past years, and they had some nice shades in there. So I think this advent calendar is going to have some exciting shades. The price was also not whopping. Like last year or 2 years ago, they did a $300 something advent calendar that had 25 or so shades. This one is small. It's only 4 shades, I think. So the price was something that I could say, okay, I can just pay that amount right now. I don't need to think a lot. It's not going to be a huge dip into my savings. I've also been having some success in my interview process, in my job search. If you all are new here, first of all, welcome to my channel. I'm excited you found me on the internet, and second is that I am looking for a job. As I have small successes, I like to reward myself a little bit to keep the momentum and motivation going. So that was also part of it. I bought it after a few successes, but no ultimate success at the moment. It's been rejections mostly right now. The market's not doing well, just FYI. I feel like if you talk to anybody in tech, they can tell you. Okay, this is the completed look. At the very end, when I'm done with this look, which is going to be a different eyeshadow look, I'm going to bring the camera closer and show you both looks from close up. But let's get started on this one. And for this one, I'm going to use 13, going into this beautiful, beautiful deep dusty mauve shade. Starting with my outer V, just blending this in. And I'm doing sort of a C-shaped. Well, for you all, it might be a reverse C, but I'm kind of doing like that, like a crescent, sort of a shade across my eye. And I'm gonna now bring the same shade under my lash line, and I'm gonna use Morphe and Nyan collab, the pink brush, which is a packing brush, and I'm gonna go into this pink one and bring this further in. And because I already broke my no-buy, I decided to extend my no-buy by another week. So my no-buy is now going till November 8th. So the end of the first Friday, well, the second Friday in November, because I think the first Friday is November 1st. I'm now using EO5 from Singe, going into this blue shade. I have to use it, and we know, well, I've mentioned earlier in this video that mauves have blue in them because mauve is a variation of purple. If you haven't watched my color series videos, definitely check those out if this is not familiar territory for you. And because of that, we know that we can mix mauves and blues safely without getting any muddiness or any unexpected shades in the process, which is part of the psychology behind why I chose these shades. And because of that, I know if I put blues here, I'm not gonna have any problems just putting blue and having blue show up as it is. And I'm now also bringing it a little bit down. One thing that sort of excited me to the level of really wanting to pick up this collection, which again goes to the psychology of how we get influenced as people, is that I really like Caddy Lacquer's formula. I love their textures. I really like the shades that I've used from them in the past. To me, compared to the other similar collections that I've used, they are a lot more unique. And then also watching some of their mystery bundles and advent calendars from past years made me also realize that what they put in these advent calendars is usually very exciting shades. I'm using a Morphe pencil headed brush, and I'm going into Emblem from Clionadh, and this is going into the inner corner, coming down and then going up like that. And knowing that they have released unique shades in their past advent calendars make me believe that this advent calendar or this sort of mystery box is also going to have exciting shades. Specifically, they said these are going to be Christmassy shades. The collection was going to have a magnetic shade, and I don't know why in my head I kept thinking this is going to be a white with green magnetic particles in it. Like, how cool would that be? If you are a nail polish brand watching this, if nobody does it, please make a white nail polish that has green, like Christmassy green magnetic effects in it, because I think that would be just so Christmassy and so different and so beautiful. It's not something we've seen. It's not something I have anything similar to in my collection. Anyway, I'm hoping I'm giving people ideas and they're gonna come up with these. But I also don't have a lot of Christmassy stuff. I know I mentioned in one of my videos reviewing another Caddy Lacquer collection that I don't have anything red. I don't have red nail polish. Can you believe that? I have only invested in buying funky other colors and no funky red nail polish. So it would be exciting to have some Christmassy reds even, and or even Christmassy greens. I don't have green nail polish like that either. So I thought, well, almost whatever they come up with is going to be new. You know, chance of them duping something I already have in those 4 shades is very low. Beauties, this is the completed look. If you sort of followed the no buy or maybe went on a low buy, or write to me what your results were this month. I'm curious to know. Let me now bring the camera closer and show you this look from close up. Thanks so much, beauties, for being here. I love you all. Have an awesome day, and until next time, bye.